One of NASCAR's most demanding tracks, Dover's Monster Mile challenged Sprint Cup drivers and teams Sunday. Jimmie Johnson dominated, but a late twist of plot set up a dramatic scramble to the checkers.
They are side by side for the lead at Dover. Johnson to the outside. Smoke back to the bottom of 3.
Tony hanging on the bottom of the racetrack and making it work. Jimmie Johnson in the high groove. He's getting up there. He makes the pass this time, coming off turn number 4. And
dominating performance will be punctuated with victory in the checkered flag in the first stage.
This time, the best car does win. Jimmie Johnson, who led 297 laps today, comes home as the winner of the Autism Speaks 400.
Sunday marked the 4th time that Jimmie Johnson conquered the Monster Mile, the 3-time series champ, leading a race-high 298 of 400 laps to give Rick Hendrick his 180th Cup win as an owner. Tony Stewart finished second for the 3rd time this season, but more importantly, left over with the lead in the championship. We'll recap the champions charge, the shuffled standings, and more with our roundtable panel next on NASCAR Now. From the Home Depot Garage Studio, welcome to the Fastest Car Did Win edition of the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. Let's see, Jimmie Johnson did his thing on Sunday. The Monster Mile had an impact on the championship standings, and a few others had impacts at the Monster Mile. We talk about it all now with this Monday's panel. We welcome to the program Big Brad Daugherty, our champion crew chief Tim Brewer, and Ricky Craven. When Jimmie Johnson was 9th with 31 laps to go, who thought he could still win and who said, nah, he's done?
Oh, I thought he was going to win.
Oh, yeah.
For those who do not know, I picked him to win on our pre-race show, so I thought he had it. I thought he had it in the bag.
I'll tell you who knew, and I think the only person on the planet who knew, Jimmie Johnson.
We're going to ask him, you think?
Well, I'll have to echo those sentiments, but I sat beside of him when he did pick the winner, but, you know.
That's right.
Blind chicken gets a grain of corn.
Oh,
there we go. All right, let's take a look at Jimmie's race. He started 8th, got the lead for the first time at lap 49. Yeah, I know where you're going with that, but I got to sit next to him the whole show. And led most of the race, as I mentioned, 298 of 400 laps. At one point, he was 9 seconds ahead on 2nd place. Then when the caution waved for debris, he had trouble on his pit stop, and it dropped him to 9th for the 31-lap sprint to the finish. We'll get Brewer's breakdown on what happened here in just a minute. So we go racing, and Jimmie starts going up through the pack. Again, he's 9th for the 31-lap sprint to the checkers. He moves to 4th with 22 laps to go by Casey Kane, heading to the front. Then passes 3rd place, Kurt Busch, with 20 laps to go. Now at this point, he's 3 seconds behind the leader, Greg Biffle. Catches Biffle in 2nd place, Tony Stewart, with 10 laps to go, and starts trying to hunt himself a way around, and he's hunting high and he's hunting low and looking for some room.
it was unbelievable. I mean, his car was great all day long on the bottom of the racetrack, but he actually started using the high line to pick up momentum to knock those 3 seconds down.
5 laps to go. Jimmie tries low, can't make it stick. 4 to go, tries high on Stewart. After he follows Stewart by Greg Biffle, I get ahead of myself. There he goes, trying low. Couldn't make that stick, and he's got to try high. And that one he made work.
Did a great job. He just could not get the race car to stay underneath him long enough. When he got low, it's putting so much pressure getting the car tight. He went high, and like I said, he ran great in freeing that car up, picking up momentum.
Another thing you'll notice, you've got to pass the guy where he's not. If you pull right directly up behind him, you don't have any downforce on the front of the car, so Jimmie knew he had to either pass him on the bottom and clear him, but make that run on the top, it cleared it.
I didn't know if we were going to be able to get back up to the front. I knew we had a really fast car, and I knew that Jimmie was going to do everything he could to get up there. But, you know, those guys won 2 tires, and the guys that did fuel only, you know, they were struggling a little bit. And we had 4 fresh tires, and that really paid off well for us. And, you know, Jimmie did a very good job of getting up to the high groove and getting around the 14. And it seemed like the guys would go just just hard enough until we caught him, and then after we passed him, they kind of fall off to the wayside. So it gave us kind of a clean track. So it was nice.
I felt like there would be a couple quick cautions, and that whoever was up front was going to be in good shape. And fortunately for us, it stayed green. And on top of that, the lap down cars were real respectful to the leaders and let us get through and race. So off we went, and I got to third, and I thought, all right, this is a good situation. And I really couldn't find any more speed to catch those guys, and I changed my line on the track, and then started to catch them. The 14 made a move on the 16, and I was able to take advantage of that. And then I just worked on Tony for the next 5 to 8 laps, and fortunately got outside of him and got it done.
Jimmie does that. I mean, if it's he's never going to give up, and he'll find a way, and he just gets more fired up if somebody's in front of him. And he's just an awesome talent. That's why he's a 3-time champion. He and Chad they don't choke much. I mean, they always make the car better, and they're great together. And Jimmie he can search the track, he can find a groove, and he's just an awesome talent.
Yes, awesome talent for sure. Jimmie's second win of the season means he's scored at least 2 wins in 8 straight years. The longest active streak in the series and 6th longest in the modern era. The record held by Jimmie's teammate Jeff Gordon, who won multiple races in 14 consecutive years. A streak, by the way, that ended last year. That's a pretty good list of names to be on. So the whole drama was set up with Jimmie going from 1st to 9th on the pit stop with 36 to go. Some of those positions lost to strategy, but some lost to a little hiccup on the pit stop. Brewers breakdown coming up.
Well, Chad Knaus, he's just as creative on pit road as Jimmie is in the race car. So they practice different scenarios utilizing every member of the team. And when they didn't utilize the fuel man and the second can man, they utilized them to try to get the tires away from the car so they could get the tires back on them. Hey, they practice it a lot, but it didn't work that time. And sometimes you get yourself in a situation, if you just run the regular pit stop, the regular routine, maybe you'd come out better. But Jimmie, he brought them back, and that's the reason they call it team.
They took 4 tires there. Some others took 2. We're going to talk about the strategy a little bit later, but in hindsight, obviously the correct one to make, to take the 4 tires. They won the race. But Chad had to know some people were going to take a chance.
I think he probably did know, but here's the fact. There are only a few drivers in the field that have a little reserve. One of those guys is Jimmie Johnson. Regardless of how dominating he appeared during the middle part of the race, he has that little extra. And we saw it with 35 laps to go. As many years as I've watched races and driven race cars, those 35 laps were as impressive as any I've seen.
Yeah, it was a strong run. Jimmie's move from 9th up to get the lead. And in particular, his efforts to get past Biffle and Stewart for those top 2 spots. He pretty much ran the low line the whole race long until the end. Then we saw him move up to the high lane. And Ricky, I want to rely on your experience as a racer at Dover. What's he feeling in the car that's telling him, okay, I got to do something different?
I think there's 2 risks associated with what he did here in the last 35 laps. One is he could blow a tire, just building too much heat, and the other is just driving in too deep. What he did, in my opinion, is he drove in straight, diamond the racetrack, and carried tremendous speed down the straightaway. He did not tax the right front tire, so when it came down to the last 5 laps, he simply had more tire and more car than anybody else.
And you know what? This is what makes him so great, and obviously being a 3-time champion consecutively, was he's willing to take that chance. I mean, you watched him dominate this race all day long, and when he came out 8th in that pit stop, and you're sitting there saying to yourself, he's going to lose this race after dominating all day long. There was no way. He had it made up in his mind that he was going to win this race, so he was going out, he was willing to try those different angles, different lines to create as much momentum as possible, take that chance, and that's why he's a champion.
We're going to find out from Jimmie himself in a little while whether he thought he was done or not when he came out 9th with 31 to go. For the championship, Jimmie or the field? Our Sports Nation poll, who's going to win this year's title? Will it be Jimmie for the 4th straight year or anyone else? We want to know. Go to ESPN.com's NASCAR page right now. Place your vote. Results later in the show, as well as our panel's opinions. Up next, the Monster Mile finish shuffled up the Sprint Cup Championship standings. Tony's on top. A look in a moment. And the Monster Mile took a bite out of a few, but not as many as usual. We'll show and tell in a bit. Then later, the wild Saturday Dover doubleheader. We'll subtitle this one, didn't see that one coming, when the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable returns.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Keep going.
The pit strategy on the last stop with 36 to go. Let's talk about that now for just a minute. Greg Biffle got rights only on the pit stop and got the lead. So pretty easy call there for them. They could use the track position, right? Some others, Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, Casey Kane's teams also went for the two-tire call. The Biff held the lead until Stewart went past him with 9 to go. He wound up finishing third. Of course, Jimmie Johnson going by both of them, as we saw in the last segment of the show. So Kane finished 6th, Newman finished 8th, Biffle third, Stewart second. Those are the guys that went for two tires, while Johnson, who got 4, went by them all and took the top spot. Thoughts on the strategy calls from those involved now on Sunday?
That's all I could do. I'm used up. That's everything I had, and we didn't leave anything on the table. We just got outrun there at the end. He was flying, man. When I saw him get the third and start running us down, it was like, man, we got to get by the 16. I don't know if we could have got by the 16 any sooner, if we could have held him off or not, but it was sure fun trying. Especially when you can race a guy like Jimmie like that. I mean, it's a guy you trust, and you know, it's fun. I mean, we've been in those battles many times, but it's fun when you have a day like we had today at the end.
It was a good day, top 3, and I think that I've got to argue with the people that are critics of these cars that they put on good races.
It was a good points day for us, without a doubt, but we just didn't have the overall grip and the balance in the race car with the U.S. Army Chevrolet. Everybody did a good job. We had better pit stops and kind of got stuck mid-pack most of the day, but two tires at the end wasn't the way to go for speed, but it was for track position. We netted a couple spots, so it was a good call on Tony Gibson's part, and we'll take our points and go into Pocono.
So Jimmie Johnson pitted from the lead and came out 9th. He ended up winning. Stewart was 6th before the pit stop, came out 2nd, finished 2nd. Net gained 4 spots for him. Biffle was 4th, came out 1st, finished 3rd. Net gained 1 spot from the strategy for him. And again, Kane finished 6th and Newman finished 8th. The strategy calls by the guys that got 2 tires, right calls, wrong calls, thoughts?
My thought is you collect information all day long as a crew chief. You take the driver input, but at the end of the day, you're trying to put the guy in the best situation to win the race, and you're wanting to get out front, so you get 2 tires, you put him in the clean air, and you hope, because you got 30 laps to go, and that's your best shot to win. Now, if somebody behind you gets 4 tires and an opportunity to get you a couple of cautions and run you down, so be it. You lose the race.
Yeah, I agree. I think you take the 2 tires and just take the risk, take the opportunity to gain positions on pit road, just like Tony Stewart and those guys did. Put yourself out front. You don't know what's going to happen. You got Jimmie Johnson, the only guy that picks up 4 fresh tires starting 9th, and the likelihood of him coming from back there to win is slim, even though he done it, but it's slim. So I think you take the chance.
And nobody'd outrun Jimmie all day anyway, so of course you take the chance.
That's true. On top of that, Tony Stewart is as good as anybody at finishing the job. So give him 2 tires, give him track position. He's going to bring you home in the top 5.
Yeah.
Speaking of pit strategy and pit road, the new Dover pit configuration. Longer pit boxes, the pit road curving back around further into turns 3 and 4, and 4 feet more driving lane than before. Did the new pit road change things in any way?
Well, I think it helped a lot of people, but we still seen a lot of beating and banging on pit road. Welcome to Dover.
I think it just gave them more room to run into one another trying to get in and out of their pit stop. It's just such a difficult exit and entry off that pit road.
And it's still frightening making a green flag stop.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Oh, yeah. And then we only saw one of those on Sunday, but I'll bet it was interesting for a lot of people. The Dover track proved once again that it's one of the toughest, if not the toughest, on tires. We saw a few different guys have some troubles, particularly on the right front. This was Tony Raines, lap 44. We're going to see lap 164, Juan Pablo Montoya, and then lap 231, Denny Hamlin. Oh, every time I see one of those, it hurts just to look at, and I've never hit the wall like that in a race car. Why is this track so darn demanding on tires?
When you go off in that corner, you put a lot of input in the steering wheel itself. You're basically pivoting off the right front tire, and you're abusing the right front tire. And the right rear, there again, you've got so much downforce in the rear of the car, you have to put a lot of right rear spring in them. So you go back after that throttle, you spin that tire, all you're doing is abusing the right side tires all day long.
Yeah, you go down the straightaway or the back of this racetrack, you're looking at 9 degrees of banking. So you're getting a tremendous amount of load, in particular on that right front tire, once you go off into the corner. And you see these race cars, if you're standing there, physically fall into 1 and 2. Yeah. So there's a ton of load right there. And let's be honest with it. Anybody that knows anything about this sport knows that these guys monkey with the air pressures just a little bit. And sometimes you don't run quite enough air pressure, and that gets you in a lot more trouble.
And the track surface at Dover is a difficult one on tires. So all that said, Put me inside the race car, Ricky. Is there a point, knowing how hard this track is on tires, that you're driving a race like that to save tires?
Yeah, this is a classic example of managing the race. And what does that mean? It means that for the drivers that have done this a while, have been at Dover, they mark their steering wheels. They have an input, and they understand where they're at by feel or by looking at the steering wheel. If they add more and more wheel getting in the corner, they're going to build pressure, and they know that it's just a matter of time they're going to give it up. Jimmie Johnson's as good as anybody at it, and what they'll do is they'll change their line into the corner. They'll change their arc, use their pedals to help rotate the car, and just get off of the right front tire. If they don't, they end up in the wall like the 11 car.
Yeah. So Dover continues to be very demanding on the tires. All in all, I mean, we saw a few, but it wasn't a rash of them, and thankfully Denny Hamlin's was the only heavy incident from an issue all day. Now, the monster did take a bite out of a couple of people on Sunday. Hamlin was one of them. A couple of others. Lap 286, David Stremme had trouble off turn 2 that turned into big trouble for Robbie Gordon and Paul Menard.
These guys come off the corner here, and you see just get a little bit sideways, and like you say, with the banking on this straightaway, it's like you see it right there, 9 degrees. It's self-cleaning. So once Robbie got turned sideways, he took Paul with him.
You ever go through a tunnel in a mountain?
Yep.
Okay, that's what it's like to race in a tunnel, with a wall on the inside and the outside.
And this the other straightaway late in the race when Stremme came off turn 4 and his car was shot to the inside wall, came back across the track, and I don't know how David Ruderman missed him there.
That's the only thing he could have done right there. That was a save of the year because he didn't hit the brake. He turned it dead left because he didn't have any choice.
We got to come up with a NASCAR Now award.
That's right.
He just won it.
He just won the first.
That's I'm going to change my britches award.
There's a lot of lines there. I'm going to let them all go so I don't get myself in trouble.
It was appropriate.
There you go.
And all right, we'll move on. Got to talk about Junior, right? Okay, weekend one with the new crew chief. Analysis momentarily on NASCAR Now. But up next, Tony Stewart's the new Sprint Cup Championship leader. A look at the standing shuffle when the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable continues. Jeff Gordon has led the championship standings after 9 of the past 10 races, but it wasn't his weekend at Dover. Friday, qualifying crash. Ouch. So they pull out the backup car. Jeff starts at the back of the pack and drives his way up into the top 15 in the opening 100 laps, but pits under green at lap 117. He got caught, lost a lap, then the handle went away, gets put a second lap down by Jimmie Johnson here at 216. After adjustments, he runs behind the leaders, but still finishes 26th.
At this point, it's not crucial. You know, I'm more disappointed that we didn't have a shot at winning a race. Those bonus points are what mean the most right now. You know, obviously, it's important for us to stay in the top 12, but I don't care if we finish 8th or 1st or where we're at in the top 12. As long as we had the bonus points with some wins. So we got to make that happen.
I'm more worried about the last 10 weeks, not the first 26, but I'm excited about it. I'm excited for our organization because it's, I don't know how many, we were 13 races into this thing and we're leading the point standings. So just really proud of our whole organization and all these guys.
So here we go with a look at the championship standings. Yes, it is Tony Stewart now the point leader by 46 over Jeff Gordon, 64 over Jimmie Johnson. 17 years since an owner-driver led the standings. That goes back to Alan Kulwicki, 1992. By the way, both the Stewart-Haas cars in the top 5 now, as Ryan Newman up to 5th in the driver points. Tony Stewart, the point leader. Who saw that coming? It's kind of a theme I'm going to get to a lot later in the show. Who saw that coming? But seriously, when we did all these preseason shows and all the preseason picks and so on, who saw Tony Stewart being the point leader on the 1st of June?
Yeah, no, I didn't. And I'll tell you, what Tony Stewart has accomplished up to this point is remarkable. I mean, running that business, like we talked about yesterday a little bit, the compression charts, the budgets, the payrolls, the personnel, that side of it is daunting. And then when he straps in the race car to still be one of the greatest race car drivers in the world, to put that to task, he is absolutely doing an unbelievable job with this Stewart-Haas Racing organization.
I agree with you, Brad. His frame of mind is what I think is an obvious change. I mean, he's as happy as I've ever seen him. You never had to question his focus. You never had to question how bad he wanted it. But now, what brings to light with this new situation is how does he manage it all? Pretty darn well.
Yeah, really.
I mean, he's got 9 top 10s now, guys. That leads the series, and that speaks to his consistency, which that team never had before he got
there. And a win, and with his teammate a pole. And
well, you know, we've never seen this side of Tony Stewart because, you know, he's been kind of like rough and tumble. But now he's in an organization. He knows that he's there every day. He's working with the Aero guys. He's working with Rick Hendrick. He's getting input from all sides, and he's utilizing it. I'll tell you what, he's a team player.
Yeah. Utilizing it well. Jeff Gordon, to me, his race Sunday really shows the difference between being 1 lap down and being 2 laps down. Agree or disagree, but free pass rule, 1 lap down, you always have hope. 2 laps down, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you get when you're 2 laps down, it's a long, long day. But I was really impressed with Jeff Gordon starting 42nd. We know he had the back ailment, which was a big topic. He did not feel very well. He still drove the wheels off that race car to get himself close to being up front for most of the day.
I got taught a very, very valuable lesson in 1978 in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina. We went 4 laps down with Cale Yarborough right there in our backyard. And Junior looked at me and I went, "What do you think?" He went, "There ain't no tunnel. You might as well keep working on it." So, believe it or not, it was a Wilkes 420. We come back and won the race over Darrell Walter. So don't never quit.
One quick point, and we all know this because we live it, the little things mean everything. The fact is, if he finishes that qualifying lap, he's probably front row based on what I was seeing.
Yeah, that's right.
And then all of a sudden, guys, instead of having like a Richmond race like Jimmie Johnson had a few weeks ago, he might have had a race like Jimmie had at Dover. You just never know.
Let's talk about Kyle Busch now. He held 6th spot in points this week, despite having a difficult day at Dover. Struggled with the handling on his car early, went a lap down, got the free pass at lap 231 when Denny Hamlin crashed. Then they get the handling going. He comes all the way back into the top 10. This is when he gets the free pass when Denny had that. Ouch. So they get the handling straightened out. He comes all the way back into the top 10. He's running 6th at lap 344 when he picks up a vibration, heads to pit road onto the green. The team notes the front splitter's broken. Kyle finishes 23rd. Our resident crew chief, Tim Brewer, has stepped over to our Home Depot cutaway car. Tim, got some theories on what happened?
Yeah, I wanted to get it straight from the horse's mouth. Jimmie Maycar put a call into him, the manager at Joe Gibbs Racing, but didn't get a response. But Alan, what we think happened, this is a piece of Tegris. It's actually bulletproof. But there again, you've got a bolt that runs up through the Tegris to the bracket. Some guys use heim joints, but once you break this area from the force of the wind pushing down on the front of the car, it actually separates from the bracket back in this area, and the thing was actually flapping in the ground.
Proud of you, Brew. You said you were going to work the term "wallered" in there. Get on back over here. Kyle was a prominent player in the Saturday doubleheader. We'll look at those races shortly. Okay, so can't do a show without talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Oh, man, here we go.
First race weekend after the crew chief change. Lance McGrew on top of the pit box on Sunday, calling the shots for the 88 car. Not a bad day. Junior started 22nd. Worked his way up into the top 10. He's running 3rd after the pit stops at lap 232. Then, just like Kyle, the handle got off a little bit. He fell back some, and at lap 287, they had a couple quick cautions there. He chose to pit when some of the others didn't. That cost him some track position there. End result, a 12th place finish on the day for Team 88.
We just wanted to try to improve on what we've been doing. Come out of here with a feeling that this might work and give that to the team. You know, they need it more than I do.
In this sport, in this level of competition, you're just not going to go from where we've been running to first. It's just not going to happen. So, like I think this week we need to run 11th to 15th. Next week I want to run 9th to 12th, and we just keep going. So, no, I think the communication was fantastic. The team worked fantastically well.
It's real easy to talk to Lance. He's taking all in. He's a sponge and taking all that information in.
Until we work together a few races to where I understand exactly what he's saying and when he's saying it, and exactly that's kind of the first time we've kind of worked on a number system where he could tell me, you know, exactly how tight the car was, exactly how loose the car was. So, you know, all those are just building blocks to establish our communication and to make our changes a little more precise.
It's only one race. You know, we'll see how we communicate in 2 months. We'll see if we're at each other's throats then or not.
For some reason, Mr. Hendrick labeled me with I'm a field general, I think is what he said. So I'm just pretty direct.
I felt like I was in the pit box with him all day, and I felt like that he was riding with me all day, and that was a good feeling, and hopefully we can keep that up.
So Lance McGrew, a 12th place finish in his debut as Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s crew chief of Junior's 5 previous crew chiefs. Pete Rondo had the best showing in a debut race. That was third in the 2005 Daytona 500. This was the second time that a crew chief made his debut with Junior at Dover. Steve Neal made his debut there in 2005. So let's talk about the process of a driver and a new crew chief working together. We were all listening to Junior and his comments there after the race, and Brewer's nodding his head, and yep, that's what I expected to hear.
Well, in the first place, that's the most positive I've seen and heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. in quite some time, because what Lance was doing was correcting the problems on pit road, making great decisions, making the car better. That's what he's been looking for. He and Tony Eury Jr., they worked really well together, but they just couldn't get that chemistry to keep flowing. And it's all of a sudden, now he's got new blood, the guy's listening to him, he's absorbing the information, and he's paying attention.
The guys, having been in that situation, the key aspect that I take away from this race is that the communication was perfect. And when you compliment your crew chief and your crew chief compliments his driver, the team members buy into it and they feed off of it, and guess what? You got things headed in the right direction.
You're exactly right. This is just like in stick and ball where you have a coach, and the crew chief is the coach of the team. And what happens sometimes after a long tenure, the coach loses that voice with the team. So you bring this new coach in, and all of a sudden there's a little bit of optimism, and that's what you hear in Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s interview there. He has optimism. And what we have the greatest drivers in the world, from first to worst. They're only separated by that much. Yeah. So if you can have a little bit of optimism, and he gets up on that wheel just a little bit harder, we're going to see good things out of Earnhardt Jr.
Still to come on the Monday Roundtable edition of NASCAR Now. Kyle dominated both of Saturday's Dover races, but didn't win either. What happened in a little bit. But up next, the winner of Sunday's race, Jimmie Johnson. A little post-mortem with the 3-time champ when NASCAR Now's Monday show continues.
This probably ranks as one of the toughest on the circuit.
The action gets fast, it gets furious.
You take a beating all day long, not only physically, but mentally.
I may bug you about every 10 laps. Let us know how it's going. 10-4. Just talk.
They come down to the line. Green flag goes in the air, and we are underway.
I think the track's tightening up, but this earlier in the race it started off free, so it's certainly coming to us. You're right about your happy hour pace on tires there after 8, 9, 10 laps. Man, if I even try to touch the gas or anything, the back end will just come right around. 10-4. You come, I want you to come this time.
Everybody darting and diving to pit lane.
4 tires.
Caution is on the speedway.
Sides only, right sides only. Leave on right, we got to beat this start finish. Right side. Drop it.
What a huge break this is for those drivers that stayed out.
We're going to be the leader, buddy. 10-4. God, we got lucky on that one.
Jimmie Johnson, a 3-time winner here on the Monster Mile, right now in charge.
You want me to go up through all these guys or what? European cars, the 16 is coming.
Greg Biffle is on the attack.
Keep getting along, get that 48.
Biffle just rolled up and gave him a good whap in the backside.
Well, if he wants to run into me and get on this straightaway, I'll correct him. I think we can beat them off the pit road. If they come in front of you, we're going to hook you up right here, bud. I think we're going to be pitting here. 4 tires. 2 tires.
Greg Biffle will win the race off pit road. Tony Stewart with some quick strategy as well. Only 2 tires for him.
Go. Call at me. Go. Damn it, guys.
Jimmie Johnson back in the 9th position. He's got some fighting to do.
We'll be fine. You can drive right by these guys.
The green is out, and the Biff is on the gas.
Tony Stewart starting to come to light, trying to catch Biffle.
And more laps, man. You're the fastest car on the racetrack right now. I'm trying. Oh, buddy, doing an awesome job. Got a lot of laps on those left sides, so might be hurting us a little bit compared to those guys, but doing a hell of a job.
Biffle goes up the racetrack. Smoke comes back to the bottom. He'll go to the lead, and Jimmie Johnson has arrived on the scene as well.
Be some wild finish.
They're good, bud. You just keep going straight and smooth like that. They're going to wear their stuff out pretty bad.
They are side by side for the lead at Dover. The Jimmie Johnson Express, just too fast and too strong.
Boy, you got him, dude. You got him.
This time, the best car does win. Jimmie Johnson, who led 297 laps today, comes home as the winner.
Woo! Has been coming to work fun. Thank you. Jimmie, thank you for saving my butt today, bud. You bailed us out big time. This is just the start of a kick-ass season for us. Right here, boys. I love you. Woo!
The man who was the show all day long at Dover, but especially in those final laps, joins us now by telephone. Jimmie Johnson, the winner. Jimmie, congratulations on the victory, and thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Yesterday was a great day. I mean, one heck of a car to drive, a ton of grip, a lot of fun. I could run it anywhere on the track, and the way things shook out there at the end with that last round of pit stops and the strategy that all the teams took, I needed that good car to get to the front, and took advantage of things and did it.
So when you came off pit road with just over 30 laps to go and you're 9th in line, did you think you were done, or did you believe you had a chance?
I wasn't sure we were done, but I was thinking long and hard about the Las Vegas race earlier in the year, and we had a dominant car and pit stop sequence. I think we were caught in the pits when the caution came out, and I was just driving way over my head to get back to the front, and I crashed the cars. So I was just reminding myself of that incident in Vegas, and just tried to get all that I could. I mean, I wanted to be smart. Fortunately, lap cars were very respectful. I was able to get by the 17 and the 2 that were on 4 tires as well right in front of me, and start working on the guys with 2 tires. And before I knew it, I was sitting there in 3rd, and I could see the leaders racing. And then at that point, I felt good about it. But up until then, I was kind of bummed that we pitted. I thought we should have stayed out. I figured there would be a couple quick cautions during that final 30 laps, and I thought the move was to stay out. So I was going like you wouldn't believe it, to get back to the front.
It worked out a little better than you were hoping. And we were talking earlier in the show about lane choice. It appeared you hugged the bottom most of the race when you could, but when you got to 3rd and started trying to hunt down Tony and Greg Biffle, you started moving up the racetrack. Why the choice of the higher lane late in the race?
Well, it was kind of twofold. I felt that once I could only, on the bottom following them with the turbulent air, I was only picking up about a 10th a lap, and I knew that was not going to be enough to get to them in time to race for the win. So I moved to the top, and once I got to the top and started making up a little bit more time on them, I thought, well, perfect. Now I've figured out my way by them. Following them wasn't going to get it done, and I needed to find another lane to run in, and kind of got killed 2 birds with 1 stone in that respect. So once I got close enough to Tony, he started moving around and experimenting, and fortunately I had it dialed in really well up there, and got by him before he figured out the line around the top.
Yeah, he went high, you went higher, and that was pretty fun to watch. We were also talking earlier about driving to conserve tires. As you led a lot of that race on Sunday, and even in those final 30 laps for that matter, was there a point that you were driving to conserve tires?
I would say the first 2 runs I was conserving a little bit. The first run especially, I mean, I got to like 3rd or 4th and just kind of settled in and wanted to see what the tires looked like, and I was kind of loose. So I expected to get a bad report on the right rear tire, and Chad said it looked great. Then the next run I ran a little harder, and we actually got tight. So I was nervous about the right front. And he said, no, the right front looks great. So from that point on, I felt pretty comfortable with the tire situation and how hard I could push the car.
So you have 2 wins now. You're up to 3rd in points. Thoughts on your bid for a 4th consecutive title halfway to the chase?
Well, I feel pretty good about it. There's a lot of racing before the chase even starts. I look at Dover and knowing that track is in the chase, and feel really good about Dover, obviously. And I think we showed yesterday that we can get it right and have a dominant performance. And hopefully we can sort some things out and have it all right in those final 10, because it's what it's going to take. And I feel really good about it. Just never know until you get in it and get racing, but I feel like we have a really good chance.
All right, last question. You're testing today, but it has nothing to do with that race to the chase, right?
Yes. I was putting tear-offs on my helmet today. I haven't done that in a long, long time.
Jimmie tested a car getting ready to go run Tony Stewart's race at Eldora later on this week. Hey, Jimmie, thanks for the time. Brad's been kicking me in the right knee the entire time to say thanks for helping his fantasy team. We appreciate it. Congratulations on the win.
You got it, guys. Glad I could help out, Brad.
All right, buddy, thank you.
Jimmie Johnson, winner of Sunday's race at Dover, Delaware. Still to come on the Monday Roundtable edition of NASCAR Now, a preview of Sunday's 500-miler on the tricky triangle at Pocono. But first, the Saturday Dover doubleheader. Kyle Busch didn't have a good day. Saturday, the NASCAR Nationwide Series turned into the opener of a doubleheader at Dover. Joey Logano on the pole led 87 of the 200 laps. Kyle Busch was the star here, taking the lead from Logano just past halfway. He'd lead almost the entire second half of the race. Restart with 34 to go. Kyle motors away from Logano. He had great restarts all day, so when caution waved with 7 to go for debris from a Scott Wimmer tire problem, we just didn't see it coming on the restart with 2 to go, that Kyle wasn't going to get away and he was going to lose the lead. Keselowski under both of them. Logano, what happened?
It's completely 100% my fault. I take total blame for it. I got to find him and apologize to him.
How do you repair this, Joey?
I'm about to find out.
Joey talking to Dave Burns right after the race on Saturday. So Brad Keselowski leads 2 laps all day, the last 2, and picked up his first win of the season. The emotions of the finish evident on the parts of those involved. The old thrill of victory and agony of defeat. So, despite his 17th place finish, Kyle Busch remains the Nationwide Series championship leader. Did lose 33 points of his lead to Carl Edwards. You see just 173 points separating the top 5 in the championship as the Nationwide Series heads to Nashville this Saturday. While we saw Kyle with a flat tire at the end of Saturday's race, it wasn't until Sunday morning when Jamie Little interviewed Joey Logano for NASCAR Now that the timing of that flat tire was confirmed.
Yeah, I talked to him after the race, and I didn't know that he had a right front tire going down. And I went off in the corner, and he started going up the racetrack on the brakes, and I was right on him, and there's no room for error there. So looking back at it, I kind of wish I knew he had a right front tire going down, but done stuff a lot different. Probably had a really good shot at winning it. But it is what it is at this point. We'll put it in the past, and we still got a good second place finish out of it. It's just it's tough giving away a race like that,
I don't think there's anything more complicated in this sport than when teammates tangle on the racetrack, especially racing for a win. But that knowledge that Kyle had the flat when he went into turn 1 on the restart kind of changes everything.
It certainly does. And I think that Joey Logano deserved more than anybody on the planet an explanation, and it should have been given to the media right after the race. Listen, I am the biggest Kyle Busch believer in terms of talent. The fact is, when you have a situation like this where everybody goes home or turns the television off thinking that a 19-year-old kid did the wrong thing, well, you need to make it right. And when Tony Stewart left Gibbs Racing, we knew that there would be some leadership that would be vacant. Somebody has to step up and take that role, and I think Kyle Busch needs to do that. First thing you do the interviews. Not just when you're in victory lane. As soon as the race is over, you owe it to the media, you owe it to the world to do the interview.
You know what, though? This is the way I look at it. Joey Logano was not going to be wrong under either circumstance as far as I was concerned. This is to win the race. He goes down into the corner with Kyle Busch. You go down in there and you drive the car as hard and as far as you possibly can, trying to either get him a little loose to give yourself an advantage, to get to his left rear. You don't want to wreck him, or you're going to try to get by him. I think he was totally right in both circumstances, and I was totally surprised at how people threw off on Joey Logano and expected him to apologize. There's no way you apologize for that. He's trying to win the race.
The biggest surprise was when Kyle drove off in the corner, he didn't know that tire was flat until he got there. Yeah. Had he known it or a spotter identified it, he would have probably checked one up and let Joey go. But there again, when you drive off in that corner, Brad, you've already driven to the point of no return.
It's on.
And hey, whatever happens behind you, that's just going to happen.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. Everyone jumped on Joey. It wasn't Joey's fault.
And congratulations to Brad Keselowski on winning the race. A big win for Brad and that team for sure. Rain on Friday set up the Saturday doubleheader at Dover. After the Nationwide Series 200-miler, another 200 miles for the Camping World Truck Series. Tire troubles in this one. Story of the day. That's Ron Hornaday. He started on the pole. He was the point leader. He finished 26th. Let's see, Todd Bodine, left rear, finishes 18th. In the closing laps, Kyle Busch has trouble and finishes 9th. Same time Kyle had his trouble, Colin Brown did as well. He finished 22nd. He got to pit road, but the caution was out. Most pitted for tires, but Brian Scott stayed out, and the gamble paid off. Scott held on for the final 10 laps to score his first win in the Truck Series in just his 39th start, becoming the 6th different winner in 7 races this year. Ron Hornaday's point lead drops from 84 to 27 over Mike Skinner, who finished 8th in the race. The Trucks race at Texas this coming Friday night. By the way, Brian Scott up to 5th in points. Up next, Pocono, the 2.5-mile tricky triangle. A preview of Sunday's Sprint Cup race next.
One from the front row. The pole winner's going to take the checkers. Casey Kane wins at Pocono.
Couple of good Major League Baseball games coming up. Wednesday night baseball presented by Smirnoff Ice. The Red Sox and the Tigers going to square off at 7 Eastern time. Then Sunday night baseball presented by Taco Bell. It's the Phillies and the Dodgers. That on ESPN. Sunday night at 8 Eastern time.
Looks like you just got loose, and man, that's the last thing you want to do with one of these cars. Oh, Kyle Busch.
Go to the garage, go to the garage. Crash on the front stretch. Clint Boyer.
Somebody on fire up here, Montoya.
He's got clear racetrack. He's got new tires. He's got the clean racetrack.
He's running his own race. The pole winner's going to take the checkers. Casey Kane wins at Pocono.
Couple things to think about as we head into the second half of the race to the chase. Since the chase field was expanded to 12 drivers in 2007, only 2 that sat outside the top 12 at this point were able to make the chase. 2007, it was Kurt Busch. He was 17th at this point. Last year, it was Matt Kenseth, who was 16th after 13 races. So it's on to the tricky triangle at Pocono this weekend to begin the second half of the race to the chase. Big topic last year at Pocono was the new strip of pavement that was put down about a lane up from the bottom of turn 3. It had so much more grip than the older pavement around it. Everybody was running up off the bottom of that corner instead of the usual hugging the apron at Pocono. And that little piece of pavement may be a big topic this time too.
You know, turn 3 has always been the key at Pocono. As goes turn 3, so goes the rest of the race. And with the new asphalt, the drivers were playing off of that.
Yeah, you're looking for the tire combination along with the car, and you're trying to find as much grip in any corner of this racetrack as you possibly can. And like we were talking about earlier, you take these race cars down in there and de-wedge them to get them to turn, and that little bit of extra grip down there on that strip helps out a ton. So it'll be interesting to see if they can still utilize it.
Yeah, the thing I'm going to be curious about is to see how much grip that pavement has given up over a Pennsylvania mountain winter.
It might have given up a little bit of grip, Alan, but still yet, where you're going to gain momentum to get down that front stretch is through turn 3.
Yeah.
If you can carry the mail through there, that's going to send you down that front stretch, and that's what you're looking for.
A ton of speed.
Yeah, oh, you're flying, man.
This racetrack is so unique, and that's what makes it so interesting. Couple things to remember at Pocono. A green flag pit stop won't necessarily cost you a lap.
No, because you can get in, have your service, and get back out without losing a lap. And that's a great thing about Pocono.
And you guys sort of calculate this race and prepare like a road course, don't you? Don't you sort of go from
Sometimes you actually have to run the thing backwards, but there again, he who gets there first wins. If you got to use a little bit of strategy to do it, it pays the same.
And Pocono, every time we go to Pocono, I think fuel mileage. It just seems to come into play so many times there.
Yeah, and this is why this is a great opportunity once again for Chad Knaus and Jimmie Johnson, because they are so strategic in how they approach this racetrack. Just like Pocono, they'll have a great game plan, and at the end of the day, they'll hit all their marks, and fuel mileage will play a part of the win.
I'll tell you one thing that is so painful for a driver is for a crew chief to come on and say, hey, save me some gas. How do you do that at a track that has 3 runways?
Yeah, exactly.
You had the wrong crew chief, because if I ask a guy to save me some fuel, hey, I ask him when I filled it up. Don't call him with 5 laps to go in the race. Say, hey, save me some gas. Hey, there's none left.
Yeah.
Carl Edwards, by the way, winning last year's race when other guys around him were running out of fuel in the closing laps. We'll see how Pocono plays out here this coming Sunday. Some news and notes and some final thoughts when the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable returns.
NASCAR Now, brought to you by AMP Energy. AMP Up.
Tomorrow, Daytona 500 winner Matt Kenseth is back at the beach to promote the upcoming July 4th weekend race. We'll talk to Matt via satellite on Tuesday's NASCAR Now. Tony Stewart heads the list of drivers taking part in a 3-day tire test that began Monday at the Brickyard. NASCAR Now analyst Boris Said confirmed he'll drive in the Camping World West race at Sonoma June 20th, driving a silver and black car in honor of former Raiders quarterback Ken Stabler. And Mike Wallace back in a Cup car this weekend. He will attempt to qualify the 64 car for owner Larry Gunselman at Pocono. Results of our Sports Nation poll, 68% don't believe Jimmie Johnson will win a 4th straight Cup title. Remember, the question was Jimmie Johnson or everybody else? Everybody else got the nod.
I'm going to tell you what, I thought the same thing last year, and Jimmie Johnson's 3-time champ. I'm hanging with the champ. He's going to win 4.
He's helping your fantasy team, too.
I'm not going to go against Jimmie Johnson at all, but like Cale Yarborough says, tying it's one thing, beating it's something else. But I tell you what, Cale, I think the man's got the artillery to do it this year.
Yep.
I took him last year. I took him at the beginning of this year. I even took Jimmie Johnson after Richmond, so why wouldn't I stick with him now?
At least nobody waffling in this crowd.
That's
I appreciate
right.
that
Going
very
down
much.
with the ship.
One of the big news stories of this Monday, General Motors filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Rick Hendrick, heavily involved with GM in both the racing and car businesses, gave this statement today. Quote, from a racing perspective, our heritage is with General Motors. In 25 years together, Hendrick Motorsports has won 8 Sprint Cup Series titles with Chevrolet, which has more NASCAR championships and wins than any other auto manufacturer. Since I was a kid, Chevy has represented the highest level of performance. I've never wanted to race anything else, and I have every confidence that we will continue to celebrate victories together for many more seasons to come. End of quote. I got like 10 seconds. A thought on the GM situation?
Well, you know, it's going to be up to a bankruptcy judge, and I hope that at the end everyone will realize that this is an important relationship between NASCAR and General Motors, and we have to have them to survive in this sport.
I told him 10 because I had 20. I knew he'd need the extra time. Thanks for watching the NASCAR Now Monday Roundtable. Sam Hornish and Matt Kenseth Tuesday.